Holy smokes! You killed Santa Christ? I didn't mean to, it was an accident!
Oh my god! The greatest combination of Christmas icons is dead!
Yeah, I guess he is.
You're probably wondering how we got here. There, in 2010. Of course, I was not originally in these movies. You're seeing footage shot in Illinois in the 2010s, gracelessly colliding with footage shot in Washington State in the 2020s. This is what I've dedicated the last 2 months of my life to, 100% unofficially, writing, shooting, and editing my sister and I into the infamous to some trilogy of films created by the infamous Channel Awesome conglomerate of selectively semi-infamous internet video reviewer personalities. The what? The reasonable among you may be asking. Sorry to infect you, but Channel Awesome is an entertainment company that like a decade ago operated as a widely popular hub for internet reviewers, what we now call video essayists. Co-owned and operated by one Doug Walker, whose show The Nostalgia Critic anchored the site. All the associated controversies are well documented, and it's just not the part I'm interested in drudging up. Consider Wikipedia supplementary material for this video. What I am interested in is the series of films created annually in honor of the site's birthday, which they did for 4 years, with each film's length exceeding the last until scope creep resulted in a 3.5-hour-long epic that left its creator saying, "Fuck this." As you've been able to tell from the footage you've seen thus far, these movies are about as, let's say, unprofessional as they come. Standard definition, consumer-grade digital camcorders, mostly non-professional actors, embarrassing dialogue, cheap sets. They're really a complete package, demonstrating a full range of ineptitude. Kickassia's color grading makes everything look like Piss Christ. Suburban Nights. To Boldly Flee is almost entirely made up of elements from other movies, and almost the entire thing takes place inside Doug Walker's house in space. Get real used to that. And then, 5 to 10 minutes later, once you're as immersed as one can get with these, in we come. Why? Same as the original films, kind of just because. We had creative aspirations, which I'll get into, but we found them in the process of getting carried away with ourselves because we were having too much fun. Behold the result of a dangerous game of metatextual chicken, a yes and folly ado, in which we immerse ourselves so wholly in bad movies that we become one with them. We fought for Kickassia, became Suburban Nights, and boldly fled. Is it a movie? Is it a Twitch stream? Is it? Fair use. Rosencrantz and Guildenstern are fuck-ups. This is May and Hazel Invade the Channel Awesome Movies. Well, this is a mostly spoiler-free look at the project. The very first chance you'll have to watch it will be forthcoming as of my writing and this video's posting. Friday, November 7th, 2025, starting at 10 a.m. Pacific time and inevitably running the whole day at May.mkv on Twitch and May.vod on YouTube, linked all over, where we will be watching alongside you, giving commentary, especially to the parts of the film we've left unedited, so you can be safe in our hands. Many surprises abound. It is inevitable that once a bad movie crosses a certain infamy threshold, it becomes a classic. As we grow tired of hearing about all the things that make them terrible, more and more of their charm points start to shine through. These reads begin to emerge, takes. The Room is a secret reflection of the real-life relationship of its two male leads. Freddy Got Fingered is a subversive masterpiece mocking the studio-backed vanity project. To Boldly Flee is... we'll get there. What's important is the villain will start to look like the hero to those on the fringe. And since before I started making movies myself, I've been obsessed with how a bad film's crude elements invite me to think about how they were made. That's something I thought about a lot while working on Divine Hammer, my forthcoming horror exploitation whatever feature film made with my dear sister. When we set out to make this film, we did so with literally no legitimate filmmaking experience. We were two idiots throwing ourselves into one of the most logistically complicated art forms. Preparation was just as much about researching the subject matter as it was finding answers for questions as basic as, how do you make a movie? Eventually that question became, well, what makes a movie feel like a real movie, even on a shoestring budget? We of course identified immediately we had 1 foot each hovering above our greatest pitfall, and so the opposite question felt more critical. What makes a movie feel like a YouTuber movie? What makes a movie feel nothing like a movie at all? Contemporary to their releases, I watched The Nostalgia Critic and a few other creators on the site, but I would not go near these movies. I never even sought out the Nostalgia Critic reviews, and those are all more popular than the films themselves. Much later, I'd heard the unsurprising horror stories about this trilogy's production. 18-hour days, on-set injuries, field and communication breakdowns between 2 embarrassing brothers holding consumer-grade handycams. This felt like a great fit to explore some of our questions. Especially because there was, for some reason, an audience of people who would jump at the opportunity to watch us suffer through all 7 hours on a live stream, which we defiantly turned into 12 by adding extra videos that surrounded the films. Immediately after the first stream in 2023 finished, we knew we had an annual tradition on our hands, if for no other reason than the sheer volume of associated movie films to throw on the pile. All these fuckers have movies, but our relative unfamiliarity with these people we were seeing on screen became a hindrance to our experience and to our audiences, so we needed to educate ourselves. May's Twitch chat was a big help, even through the 7-character limit on messages we imposed. We faced a dilemma. We are so compelled by these movies, but we knew some of the producers, commonly the women, wished everyone would just up and forget they ever existed. And here comes us fucking bozos pointing and laughing in all directions, but not at all above anyone or anything in these films. But most of May and I's ideas start with, wouldn't it be funny if, or, oh, we could totally, and then we find what we're trying to say in the process. God, so much of To Boldly Flee is standard shot reverse shot of 2 people in silly costumes talking at one another against blank walls or green screens. It probably wouldn't be that hard to edit out the most unfortunate stuff by YouTube poop remixing the dialogue. Wouldn't it be funny if we reshot a few of them and played the characters we're replacing? Oh, we could totally put ourselves all over these movies and create our own plot threads. We did both.
What are you doing here?
Legally obligated. Oh, hey, Ben at the stage.
Oh, god damn it, snob! Oh, okay, here's how it works. If you're unaware of or confused by what I'm even describing, I'm sorry. It's possible there's a word for it, I just don't know. A word that probably would have made this video a little shorter. It's definitely not peripheral first-person epistolary YouTube poops. Like the rest of the population, I haven't seen Kung Pao enter the fist at any point in the last 15 years easy, so I don't remember what tricks it had up its sleeve, but it obviously blew my mind. In 2002, director star Bob Odenkirk adapted the 1973 Hong Kong action movie Tiger and Crane Fists by pasting himself over its director star Jimmy Wang Yu. I'm now realizing, is it Odenkirk? Like Oedipus? O-E? Odenkirk? Bob Odenkirk? This is what fucking half the comments are gonna be about. You know I'd love to, but I can't get too much in the weeds here. But that film shares a name and absolutely nothing else with a feature film made by a high school acrobatics club in 1983 that I found while trying to find the Hong Kong film. It's adorable, and I wish it was an adaptation, so I had an excuse to talk about it here. But you know, I keep wanting to list cases that don't really count. Lion King 1.5 keeps its old and new footage pretty separate, I think. Mos Def and Jack Black had to make those home movies because they didn't have the originals. If anything, whatever evil digital necromancy Disney's cooking up in the vault is the inverse. In fact, I do mostly associate this gimmick with non-narrative content. Interviews by Weird Al.
What, do you find me attractive or something?
Maybe I do.
Wait, are you hitting on me?
Yeah.
And Space Ghost.
Do you take those intelligence drugs?
I don't need intelligent drugs, Tom, because I don't know what they are.
And of course, plenty of Channel Awesome reviewers themselves did it every now and again. So this didn't feel like a difficult prospect. These movies are so low-tech, and so is everything we do. And similarly, the M Sisters' creative sensibilities are off-puttingly simpatico with the W brothers. I'm not here to psychoanalyze these guys, but I'm the Rob, May's the Doug. Easy. I guess it bears stating, Doug and his brother Rob work very closely, and Rob was heavily involved in these productions, more and more with each film. He actually penned the first draft to Boldly Flee's script, so you have him to thank for that. It was originally 400 fucking pages long! That is so much movie! The Walkers' films are built upon two foundations. The formative movies in the development of these mid-80s to early 90s babies, watched a million times on video, now permeating their psyches. To Boldly Flee is 50% Search for Spock, 50% episodes 6 and 3. Other media is name-dropped constantly. George C. Scott's performance in Patton is taken whole cloth. Pavlovian nuances as small as intonation are taken from Ghostbusters. And reviewer lore. It's a lost art. For the better. Skipping 4 minutes into a video to get past the part where the evil version of the reviewer forces them to watch the bad movie is so brutalizing. Frankly, I never had patience for the trend, but now it's the only part I care about. Never seen a Linkara video, but I'm rubbing my grubby little hands together looking at the 19 hours of Atop the Fourth Wall storyline compilations. You can get an opinion on Transformers Dark of the Moon or Final Fantasy X-2 for most anyone with a microphone or a camcorder or a smartphone, but those skits are the most singular parts, the most them, even when they're more derivative than not. Alongside Emperor Palpatine and General Zod, John Travolta's character in Battlefield Earth is one of the primary antagonists of To Boldly Flee. This makes no fucking sense unless you intuit that it stems from a review that made a lot of jokes about Dutch angles. It's a pretty merciful one. All over these films are things that even now make me go, I don't fucking know, man, that's gotta be from some crossover or something. May and I are absolutely no better. Everything we make is littered with callbacks to our pre-existing bodies of work, and post-existing. There's still stuff in the creepypasta video that foreshadows things that aren't even out yet. Whenever we're left with a blank to fill, we'll call upon references to dear friends, in-jokes, bizarre stream occurrences we couldn't have ever dreamed up on our own. We try to find an opportunity to do something harebrained in everything, I guess. Of course, it's not just our stuff either. Sure, we're more inclined towards certain niches as opposed to those more common denominator pulls, but if anything, that's more obnoxious. I just hope watching a woman make sandwiches for 8 unbroken minutes is amusing enough in its audacity with or without the knowledge it's invoking a similarly 3.5-hour-long art house film about a widowed housewife performing domestic labor, all because one of the guys' wives is credited for catering. The entire premise of this stream is informed by a film like 15 people have seen that we hadn't even seen until we were doing a second round of edits, because its conceit captured us so completely. May's copy of the movie shipped with a handwritten letter by the director's, I don't even know, beneficiary? So once we had to balance writing ourselves as the Walkers would, as we as circa 2010 Channel Awesome producers would write ourselves, and as we, the real human beings May and Hazel M, would write our self-insert selves, bucking against the confines we set for them. Atop that, we also wrote ourselves the real Hazel and May M, into filling the shoes of the producers who originally appeared in these films, sometimes to interact with our self-insert selves, to put words in the producers' mouths, and sometimes to take certain words out of their mouths, so to speak. Take some of the heat off their early 2010 selves. It's okay, guys. This project is, and hopefully will remain, by far our most revoltingly creatively incestuous, because the further we leaned in, the more authentic it felt. Part of getting into the right mindset was identifying how to debase ourselves as much as any given producer was. Kind of uncalled for, lazy, sexist jokes at the female producers' expenses, writing romances between these producers who mostly more or less played themselves. What would the Walker brothers do with us? Two sisters who produced content for the site, who would have to run with whatever we're given? 8-Bit Mickey had a goat porn side plot in Suburban Nights. I think half our scenes would be predicated on the misunderstanding that everyone else on the site thinks we're fucking.
Dude, they were so doing it. Fine, Lupa, Filament. The rest of you, back to your
We
posts.
wrote chronologically, and much like the Walkers, scope creep crept up on us. In each film, we tripled our workload. You can see our initial premise play out in Kickassia. We reshot a scene between the critic and Spoonie and played it straight. We added ourselves to some montages showing off all the producers. We wrote in a few extra gags. We added literally everyone we knew to the big I Believe in Santa Christ supercut. We seriously made that 1 minute 30-second long segment over 10 minutes, and most awesome, our friend Diana made a Superstar the Karen Carpenter story style short film to chop another 10 minutes out of the original. Highlight of the stream, she's a generational talent, as is everyone we worked with on this. If you're curious what we shot on, it was 2 of these little standard def Sony camcorders from 2010. Sub-standard def is probably more apt. The Walkers also shot on circa 2010 Handycams, and while you could buy both theirs and ours at Best Buy, theirs were closer to the top shelf. This is the kind of thing you tape your son's soccer game on. Something more like this you use to make Kickassia. Not the same model, but closer. We could have shot everything on it, and it would have matched more, but it was nice to use the fidelity to delineate what's original and what's ours. The bigger upside was that shooting multi-camera sped things up significantly. We could shoot the shot and the reverse shot all at once. With a third, you can even get a wide and have both actors in one frame at the same time. We'll probably never be on the same level as Hideaki Anno's Infinity iPhone rig, but at times we were shooting on as many as 4 cameras simultaneously. Thanks, Nintendo 3DS. Well worth perilously maneuvering around a million tripods in small rooms. The Channel Awesome films were shot predominantly handheld. Watch these films enough and you'll start to pick up on which shots are Rob's and which are Doug's. Rob prides himself on having a steady hand, so his shots often move very dynamically and very smoothly. He loves to tilt the camera while panning. Doug's are more straightforward and basic, and when there's motion it tends to be jerkier.
I hate that camera move there. Oh my shit. You see, like, when it jerks down to get to Matthew's, like, head shot.
We only shot handheld when we could afford to, when we had the bodies to spare. It wasn't until late into shooting that I could really channel Rob's cinematography, and honestly, it's fun as fuck. I get why he does it. Shooting took place almost entirely in our friend Cybershell's childhood home, largely untouched from the state it was in when these films were being made on the other side of the country, with rooms that were comparable enough to those of, say, Doug Walker's house. I seriously have that place's floor plan memorized from trying to keep our locations consistent with those in the film. But anyway, to maximize the time we were bending around May's job schedule, we wrote, shot, and edited in succession. We'd write a few scenes one evening, shoot the following day, and then I'd take all that and cut it together while May worked. I don't really know what common filmmaking wisdom would say to this, but I recommend this process for new filmmakers. Whatever you do, probably don't start by shooting a feature with a cast and crew of exclusively 2 human beings on a limited time schedule. It's doable, but we weren't learning from most of our mistakes until the editing phase, which took place almost a year after our initial shoot. This pendulum swing trial and error process was huge for getting more efficient and figuring out what tricks blend newly shot scenes into pre-existing films, at least semi-convincingly. When things started getting down to the wire and our due date crept up on us, we opted to shoot everything left across 2 days and spend the next week doing nothing but editing side by side. I pulled 2 all-nighters in order to get it out the door on time, and that still required us to be working an unplanned 3 hours into the pre-stream. You know that episode of the Kirby anime where they're all making a cartoon and they have to draw on the film reel as it's being fed into the projector in order to meet their deadline? It was literally like that, except completely self-imposed. Really rewarding, but don't live like us. Especially because it was impossible for us to be fully ready like that. We were seeing everything in sequence for the first time right alongside chat. The whole reason this video exists is because just a few hours into that stream, we had to compartmentalize it as a focus test. Once again, you can catch this new version live on the 7th of November starting at 10 AM with a VOD following. Those who attended the first time, I promise this cut is going to be very different and Suburban Nights will be cut down very short with lots of new stuff added. Back to that focus test though, we edited in Premiere, so of course we had weird rendering errors and mistakes, but one of the biggest issues was that we had no clue how pacing would feel. In other words, we weren't thinking about Suburban Nights. I've developed a real fondness for these movies, but while there are films I think I hate more, Suburban Nights is perhaps the worst film that I have ever seen. It's vacuous, aims to say nothing, says even less, it's tedious, unfunny, ugly, it sounds like shit. I fucking hate Suburban Nights, dude. I'm sorry. Our audience's patience was tested, we bled viewers, and while we won plenty of them back by To Boldly Flee, we knew we'd have to cut Suburban Nights down significantly. We had a great opportunity to do so as well. We found out after we'd wrapped that our beloved friend, secret brother of the M sisters, Gabriel B. James, aka Devenza's Gate on YouTube, was making a surprise, essentially work-related trip to the Emerald City, that's Seattle, and we were going to put him to work. So we arranged to trek back to dear old Cybershell's house with Dem now in tow to start replacing long tedious fight scenes or long tedious exposition. Of course, days before he got here, May's car broke down, which jeopardized things slightly. But hey, we wrote that into the script too, fuck it, now public transportation was a character. It is canonical Channel Awesome movie lore that Lindsay Ellis hounded Doug to get filming permits the entire time they were shooting Suburban Nights. I wrote a whole scene based on that into our cut, and like, I'm of 2 minds here, right? It's very funny and really demonstrates a lack of basic competence from someone who's supposed to be leading a cast and crew well into the double digits. But the zero-budget filmmaker part of me still balks. Psst, permits? Who do you think I am, Cecil B. DeMille? Do you see a chair with my name embroidered on it anywhere? Am I speaking to you from the other side of a bullhorn right now? I think not. When it's just me and my sister and my brother and my guy who makes YouTube videos about Sonic the Hedgehog, shooting Gorilla is so much fun. I've been elliptical about To Boldly Flee because it's got the most twists and turns and audience trolls, and because it's the one we really put our hearts into. I hope in the end we were able to highlight the things we love most about these movies and tell a story along the way. For the Boffins! For the Boffins! Video pacing checkpoint, truck driver key change incoming. Sorry, I know you saw it coming and everything, and here it is anyway. We're in the part of the video where I praise these films. I believe the Walker brothers had admirable aspirations. They obviously wanted to do everyone on the site justice with these films. I argue that's why they kept getting longer as their casts expanded. It was a reflection of the ways that site expanded expanded too quickly. Everyone was flying out from all over. They should all have their moments to shine, their own arcs. Even if those bigger roles put them at greater risk of on-set injury on non-union sets. But it still astonishes me. They shot all these films over the span of 3 to 5 days each. May and I's movie took cumulatively maybe a month of shooting over the course of its making, and it's shorter than the shortest of this trilogy. Being just 2 novices explains that, at least in part, but to me, it sounds like there's much more time to be lost directing a cast and crew of nearly 30. Big props need to go to everyone working behind the scenes, from craft services to line producers to people who just hung around to lend a hand, and plenty of producers who appeared in front of the scenes as well. One of my favorite things about this trilogy is that everyone who knew they were too good for the material genuinely heighten it. Phelis is so amazing in these. Each film he gets more fucked off than the last, but he still puts his ass into these performances. I have a lot of fun scanning the backgrounds for who was mugging the hardest and who looked the most exhausted. Angry Joe is always overflowing with kinetic energy. Film Brain has this adorable kid on Christmas disposition. Spoonie devours the scenery. And Doug is legitimately great at being a live-action cartoon character. And I feel like Doug's ex-girlfriend deserves a shout-out of some kind for playing the roles of woman on cell phone who is obliterated and woman chained up in closet. The more time I spend with them, the more I see them as cumulative efforts, which is how I should have always seen them. One of the things I respect about Doug is that whenever he cops to the fact that these movies are dog shit, he does so in a way that only reflects on him. As far as I've seen, he's never said anything particularly uncharitable about anybody else's involvement in these films. There's some kind of utter horseshoe theory going on here, where the worse a Doug Walker production is, the more we default to seeing the final product as a reflection of his abilities alone, maybe his and Rob's. Meanwhile, the relatively better elements reflect what everyone else was able to do in spite of Doug's leadership. I get it. Doug's the face of the operation, and treating these films as anything more than manifestations of his hubris feels like laying blame on the group of innocents who just had to go along with everything. And these movies are more or less about that same dynamic. Doug Walker is fixated on dictators, despots, egomaniacs. He sees them as these comedic wellsprings, and being the face of the site, it's a no-brainer to write himself as one. Did this repeatedly dovetail, unfortunately, with the mismanagement of his company? Absolutely. Are the jokes one could make about that fact deliciously easy? Frequently! And so you could, as I sort of do, see these movies as one big story arc about how the guy making the movies probably shouldn't be making movies. It sounds like I'm saying the guy should stop making art, but not at all. Sometimes, as an interdisciplinary artist, you have to admit you have a favorite baby and it needs to have the biggest college fund. Most directors don't even make 2 films. Lots of my favorite films were shot by one-time directors because, as every critic turned junior filmmaker will tell you, directing movies is really fucking hard, and there are hundreds of other ways to be involved in movies without directing. And Doug has always been in a very creative niche there. Over the past decade, Doug has seemed to fully creatively self-actualize, and part of that was admitting he didn't actually enjoy directing on that scale. After the trilogy, he made Demo Reel, a narrative series, yes, but much more honed in scope. Way fewer people involved. And now you really get the sense he genuinely fucking loves being the nostalgia critic. Say what you will about the show, and I'm still not very tapped into anything that came out after 2012, he's found a way to make it all the parts he enjoys most and is best at. To be honest with you, I can't wait to purge all this knowledge from my head. I don't intend to remain a scholar on any of these people's bodies of work when all this is over. When I hit export on this project file for a final time, this information will have served its purpose and we'll move on to another dumb thing we'll rope all our friends into being in and working on. Well, thanks for being here. Stream on Friday, November 7th, 2025 at 10 a.m. Pacific. Junji Ito video sometime after that, with a couple big surprises in between. Our real feature film, Divine Hammer, will debut in an independent theater in the city of Seattle sometime in the month of December. We're trying really hard to make that happen. Okay, thanks.